can feel it all rushing through my veins. I hear a voice and am I losing my mind? What is this place? What is my name? I can't explain the feeling. Am I really awake this time? Am I really awake this time? I'm feeling so strange. Been feeling this way for the longest
configuration. Okay. Generally, you leave everything alone unless specified, and I'm going to specify one right now. First thing you want to enable is cheats. Enable cheats. That's going to get all your configuration files to work. If this is not enabled, nothing's going to work. So right off the bat, configuration general, enable cheats. Interface, leave it alone. Audio, generally leave it alone. Now if you're having issues with a particular game, you might want to change the back end, but I mean, more often than not, you just leave it alone. Gamecube, leave it. Wii, leave it. Paths, now this is where you put your ISOs. So wherever your ISOs are stored on your computer, just add them. Put them in there. They will appear then populated over here. Alright, the advanced tab, CPU clock override. Don't be scared. This isn't actually overclocking your CPU. That's not what this is. This is overclocking the emulated Dolphin CPU. That's all that's doing. It's basically a speed hack. Alright? In some games you might notice a lot of slowdown. You might notice audio issues. Simply enable it. Move your cursor slowly, in small increments, left or right, until you start to hear and see frames improve, audio improve, that kind of thing. This is a very helpful little feature that Dolphin has. You will be using it more often than not. Okay, but by default, leave it off because your game might just work out of the box. Otherwise, this is a good resource to have for a speed hack. Okay, so that's everything you really need to worry about in the configuration file. Let's move on over to graphics. So same again, unless specified, don't really touch anything. It's fine. Okay. So for your enhancements, again, your mileage may vary. That's what I use. You leave it up to you. Okay. Again, these settings, leave them alone unless specified. Okay. Now, if you're going to be modding yourself, by all means, check them, uncheck them, see what works best for you. More often than not, you don't really need to touch them, but there might be some games that you may specifically need to use this. Okay, moving on to hacks. This is where the magic usually happens in terms of graphics. All of these settings you will need to play around with on a game-by-game basis. Nothing is plug and play, unfortunately. Well, unless a configuration file already exists. If you're going in blind, if you're going in yourself, you will need to check, uncheck, see what works best for you. Okay. Incidentally, these settings that I have all checked usually work well for me, but again, people have different rigs, different games work in different ways, your mileage may vary. Okay, moving on to advanced. You don't really need to touch anything unless you're using custom textures, in which case, click load custom textures. So why that comes into play is there are certain modification files out there, like HD texture packs, that kind of thing for particular games. So if there's a game that you have that you're like, gee, I wish this had the HD version, like a Wii U or Switch version, there may already exist a HD pack out there. So in that case, you might use that. Okay. Moving on to controllers. For Gamecube controllers, Xbox works fine. Xbox controller works fine. You can configure it. It's up to you. But the default settings with an Xbox controller works great, in my opinion, for Gamecube games. Now, Wii is where it gets a bit complicated. Again, if you're using Valve software, simply choose 5. Alright. The default. That just works out the gate for you. Your 5 ones, or your index controllers, are now suddenly tracked, nunchuck, and Wiimote, and they work just fine. Okay. Now, If you're gonna use Meta or Windows Mixed Reality, I will go over that later on, how to get that working. The final tab, VR. So this is, obviously, as the name implies, VR specific. So in the first tab, don't really mess with this stuff, unless specified. You don't really need to. Disable mirroring, that's just for performance. You can leave that on if you want to mirror. It's fine, it's up to you. Down here, time warp, I leave it on auto. You can do specific pull-ups if you like. Auto seems to work fine for me. That brings everything up to 90 frames per second. Okay, VR game tab. We will go through all these settings in the setup, but this is where the configuration for your VR titles will be. Again, we'll go over it when we're going into the game configuration later on. Avatar. This is a useful thing, so what you might notice when Wii titles, the game cursor doesn't match where your controller is. So, in that case, you can click Show Controllers to see your actual controller. You can go a level deeper and show laser pointer, so you can see exactly where you're pointing, but again, that's up to you if you want to use it or not. The rest I don't really use, but use it if you want. It can help for motion sickness. Speaking of motion sickness, there are options for motion sickness baked in. I don't suffer from motion sickness. Stomach of iron, don't need it, but it's there if you need it. And if you want a brief overview, I say brief. If you want an overview of what everything does, there it is from the man himself to e.gadd who created everything. Okay, so that's an overview of Dolphin. An overview of Dolphin VR. Settings. Useful links. They will all be in the description. And another nice little resource. Discord. Flat to VR modding community. If you go on over there, there's a section for Dolphin VR where I and a number of other people are quite active. As you can see, we're very friendly. We'll help you out wherever we can. If you have any questions, let us know. If you have any queries, let us know. We're always there to help you out. Not only that, if you're into VR in general and modding in general, flat screen to VR modding community, fantastic. Join it, make friends. We're all really nice over there. Woo! Okay, moving on to the next section. Use Ghostbusters as an example here. So what we're looking for initially is there any slowdown? What's the FPS like? Okay, so far I can see it's a little choppy. So remember what I said before about speed hacks? Yeah. We're going to be using the CPU override. And again, just so you're not scared, we're not actually overclocking our regular CPU, but the emulated CPU. Yeah, look in the menu, you can see. Hell of a lot of slowdown. Okay. So let's go ahead and open up the config. Go to Advanced. Enable CPU Clock Override. And let's just adjust it to see if we can make a difference. Whoa. There you go. Alright. Moving all the way to the left here. And we're getting good, decent frames. Okay. Alright. So we now have it emulated at, I would say, about 95% speed. It's pretty good. Okay, let's get in game here. And let's see if we've got any graphical anomalies, which of course we will have because Dolphin.
You experience feelings of dread.
Right off the bat, look at here. Got a big black screen on the top left hand side and a big bar on the top. So okay, let's go ahead and go into our graphical menu. Really what we're going to be looking at is hacks. Enhancements, that's not really going to help here. Okay, so let's just go through everything and see if it makes a difference.
Franchises available soon. Call for details.
Okay. Alright, so our EFB copies. I've set that to texture because it's faster than RAM. Now, if you're going to use texture, you need to set the cache. Now, fast is obviously faster, safe is better. So if you have any graphical anomalies, put it to safe. If not, you can leave it at fast, and we don't have that, so we're okay. We're going to leave our external frame buffer disabled because we want to see our motion controls. If you don't really care about those, you can go ahead and enable it, and then you're fine. You get some more FPS. A little bit. Okay, so those are the graphical settings for this particular game. Unfortunately, it's not the same for all games. You will need to play around a little bit. So, if you're using Steam VR headsets such as the Index or the Vive, it's just going to work. But if you're using Oculus or Windows Mixed Reality, you're going to need to jump through some hoops. You need to open up your Dolphin Steam VR.exe and then open up your controller settings. Now, when you initially open the Vive, that's what it's going to look like. Now, you can rebind these controls, but only when a game is playing. If a game is not playing, it's not going to work. Okay. So just to demonstrate now, I'm actually using Oculus Touch here, and it's working. Although you see Vive wands rendered, it's not a Vive wand. It's a touch controller. Okay. Configuration you can do if you want to put a third-person game into first-person perspective. Okay, so this is the camera manipulation. It can actually help in third-person games if you want to zoom out and get a higher FOV as well. It's completely up to you. So, okay. Now, Dolphin has this weird thing where it only saves forward and back camera position, not up, down, left, or right. So we'll go ahead and look at that first of all. So open up the VR menu, go to VR Game, and what we're looking at is camera forward. Okay. So let's go ahead and in small increments move the camera forward until we get a natural looking first person perspective. Now it's going to be off center because over the shoulder means over the shoulder, so it's off and to the right. Well, that's okay, we'll adjust that later on. So okay, this looks pretty good right now, alright? Well, hold your horses you guys, because in these older games they used to use this cinematic trick. So when you moved forward, the camera zoomed out to give a sort of a cinematic sort of sense of speed. So we're going to have to adjust the camera a little bit further to compensate for that. Only a little bit. So we're going to use small increments of 0.5 at a time. Okay, better. We can go a little bit further though. Okay, let's try that. Alright, it's looking pretty good. Okay. So we have our forward position in place, we can save that, and now we can fine tune our left, right, up and down. So to do that, it's standard FPS controls. Hold on the Shift, W, A, S and D, forward, back, left and right. Q and E is up and down. Those are your camera controls. Very easy if you know your FPS games. Okay, so there you have it. That seems pretty good. Oh, no, not exactly. I can move the camera forward just a little bit further. Okay, let's move it up to 9. Alright, that should do it. Maybe a little bit more, but let's see how this looks. No, a little bit further still. 9.5 maybe. Alright, let's give it a whirl. Yeah, that's much better. That is much better. Yeah, I can look down, I can see my proton pack, all of that kind of good stuff, so. Yep, I think this has been a success. So as you can see, I'm a little bit off to the left again, so pressing on Shift, A key once, just to get into center again. Move the camera up a little, because I seem quite short. And there you have it. Alright, that's how you adjust the camera, guys, in Dolphin VR. So next step after doing that is we're going to have to adjust the HUD and the menus, because once we've moved the 3D camera forward, everything else is kind of screwy as a result. So we need to adjust for that as well. We need to compensate for that. So okay, we'll move on to the next section. "2D screens." It's not as straightforward as you might think. Within the menu, 2D screens are sometimes referred to as HUD, HUD is sometimes referred to as 2D screen, and vice versa. So you need to familiarize yourself with all of these options: 2D screen, HUD distance, 2D screen height, 2D screen pitch, camera pitch, and so on and so forth. You may need to adjust all of them on a game-by-game basis. So the first option I always choose is HUD on top, yes or no. You will tell straight away if you get graphical anomalies whether or not to leave it on or off. In this case, I'm leaving it on. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is HUD distance. Yep, I can push my HUD forward, but there's something wrong. It's moving up and to the left, which is not ideal. So it means I need to look at something else. Many times this is because it's tied to 2D screen distance or maybe an aim distance. So let's try 2D screen first of all, just to see if it makes a difference. And it does not. Okay, we can go back. Aim distance? Yep, that was it. Alright. So between the aim distance and the HUD distance, I should be able to get it on center and in a comfortable position where I can read the text. Alright. So be patient with this, you guys. It can be finicky, it can take some time. Now, the big drawback messing around with aim distance is your on-screen reticle and your controller, more often than not, will not match anymore. So, this is why I have controllers visible, so you can kind of aim down sights, if that makes sense. Okay. Alright, that seems pretty good. So yeah, you can see the controller and the sight is not quite on center anymore, like at all. But we can adjust it further and hopefully get it on center. Or as close as we can. Okay, that's better. But we can go better still. So we'll keep adjusting. So I've noticed that the pitch will be off, and this is because you're obviously over the shoulder third person originally, so the camera will be facing down slightly. So I just adjusted the pitch there, you can see. That'll get me looking straight ahead as opposed to looking down. So it's more natural now. Yeah, that's much better. So all my text and everything is straight ahead of me. Everything is fine. Okay, so we've adjusted for a first-person perspective and also adjusted all the 2D screens as best we can within game. Now we can do some more tweaking still to get the reticle as close as we can to the center, but we don't have all day in this video, do we? But I've demonstrated how it can be done, so those are the steps you would need to follow. Alright, moving on to the next step. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about 2D screens here. So you'll notice once you've adjusted your cameras and everything that your 2D screens are too close to you. Okay, so what can we do about that? Well, if you remember in the last section we discussed about how the HUD elements and everything can sometimes be tied to 2D screens, so refer back to that a little bit. But yeah, here we go. Let's adjust the 2D screen here. It's pretty much the same settings as the HUD. Yeah. Okay. So go to your VR menu, open up VR game, and let's go ahead and try 2D screen distance first of all, see if that works here. And pretty straightforward, it works. Alright. So let's move that back to a comfortable position. Okay. Now we might want to move it up slightly. Yep, that's good. Alright. Now the pitch is a little off, so 2D screen pitch. There we go. So now you're facing it head on. Looks natural, looks good. Alright. That's it. On to the next section. This is one of the more advanced options within Dolphin VR. So you're going to notice when you boot up VR that there are going to be many anomalies that wouldn't be there in 2D. Like for instance now, you see this giant oval transparent screen. Alright, that's just one of many examples you're going to see. So we can get rid of that. The thing is, it's not difficult, but it is super time consuming. So alright, go to Properties, Hide Objects, Add. Alright. So we're going to start at 8 bits. Keep pressing up until you see the item you want to disappear, or part of the item you want to disappear. Sometimes it's not always the entire thing. So you can see as I'm scrolling up here that items are starting to disappear in the background. But keep focusing on the one you want to disappear. Okay. Alright, I saw something disappear there. There we go. See, a huge chunk is now missing? Alright, you're not done yet. Move up to 16 bits. 2 items are disappeared. Let's go to 24 bits. And the idea is you want to scroll all the way to 128 bits at the end to make sure you get the exact item you want to disappear gone. Otherwise, it's very likely other items will disappear. So it's painstaking, it's long, but that's what you gotta do. And there you go, there's another piece missing. It's gone. 32 bits, repeat the process. And you guys keep going. Yeah, it's long, it's tedious. As you can see, we're only getting part of this oval gone. We want the whole thing gone. So, if you can imagine, when we were working on this originally, this took us months, man, to get rid of all these unwanted items. Months. That's why it is really difficult to make configuration files sometimes for Dolphin games. Well, I say difficult, it's not difficult, it's just time consuming. Okay. There we go. There we go. Another item missing. Let's move on up to 40 bits. Well, you get the general idea. Keep going until you get to 128 bits. Once you get to 128 bits, insert a name at the top, press OK. That's how you do it, you guys. Alright, moving on to the next section. Not something you're really going to deal with too often, but you may come across it. So let's say you build up a game and the 3D is not quite right, or your positional tracking is too strong, like you move your head slightly and you lean completely in the other direction, or let's say things seem too big, or things seem too small, your character model, whatever it is. There is a way around this. Now, more often than not, you won't need to deal with this, but when you're changing perspectives like I tend to do from third person to first person, yeah, I tend to have to mess with the world scale a little bit as well. So, okay, how do we do that? Well, let's have a look here. Okay, so go to your VR menu, VR game, and units per meter. That's basically your world scale, you guys. So you can adjust it within here, checking the headset. Now you can see right off the bat, everything looks huge now. So that was the wrong way to go. But you can eyeball it, check it yourself. Alright, once you get it looking really, really good, in terms of everything looks to scale, you're good to go. So as I say, more often than not, you won't really need to mess around with that too much. But just in case, it's good to know. Alright, moving on to the next section. Culling codes. Alright, well I say the best will last. It's the most often sought out question that I see online is how to hell do we make culling codes? Well, we'll go over it now. So first thing we need to do, exit out of all your VR runtimes, shut down your VR headset, nothing at all VR, exit out of Dolphin, pretend you're gonna play flat, you guys, exit out of everything, turn off your VR, turn it all off. Alright, okay. So what is culling, briefly? You will notice in VR, Dolphin VR, if you open up a game and look around, you might see items have disappeared. That's called culling. We want to get rid of that. So we're going to use culling codes to do that. Now, first thing we want to do, we want to go into the advanced settings in our graphics tab. Make sure mouse free look is enabled. Okay, that's very important. Have mouse free look enabled. Okay, so let's use Legend of Zelda Wind Waker as an example. Now, don't panic, you will see your VR runtime starting up again, but you've turned off your VR headset, so it's not going to matter. What you want is the game to boot up as if you are playing flat screen version, okay? And here we are, Wind Waker, one of my favorite games, and it works fantastic in Dolphin VR, you guys. It's got a first person mode as well, so it feels almost native. Don't listen to the naysayers. It's really, really good. Alright, let's get into the game. So yeah, briefly went into what culling codes were and why it's so important. So for instance, you see this scene here. If I was in VR and I looked around, half of the island would be disappeared. It would not be there. Immersion broken. So culling codes just stops that from happening. It was just a hardware limitation at the time. This is how Gamecube was able to get around such limitations and have high fidelity graphics, was by simply culling them when you didn't see them. Kind of like how foveated rendering is supposed to work in VR. It's the same kind of idea. So we're simply disabling that at the source, so everything is rendered at once. Wake up, you lazy bitch. Sorry, guys. Okay. Okay, so we're in game now. Let's find a spot where we can see if culling is being enabled. So, okay, this grass texture looks like something that would be ordinarily culled. So let's just try it. So face away. Okay. Use the mouse free look option. So press and hold down both mouse keys and drag the screen. Okay, there you go, that's the free look option. And as you can see, the grass and the guy are missing. Uh-oh, they've been culled. Alright, so let's go ahead and get that fixed. Let's get around that. Okay, so first thing you do, pause the screen. Alright, go into the emulator, press pause. There we go. Alright, next thing you want to do, go to Tools. Okay, debugger. Okay, now go to where it says symbols. Okay, you want to clear the symbols. Press that. Go ahead, it's fine. Alright, now generate symbol map. Alright, And again, save symbol map as. Yeah. Alright, now make a note of that. That's what the folder we're going to be looking for is going to be called. So make a note of that in your head. Or write it down, whatever works. Okay, minimize it. Now, we want to save the state. We're pressing Control F1. There we go. That's saved our state. Very important you do that. Control F1. Okay, now exit out of everything. Be sure you don't unpause the game. Leave it paused. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to go to our regular Dolphin. Okay. Create a shortcut for it. Now, go into Properties and add the following text at the end. Okay. So we got dash brute force 0. Now I'll explain the importance and significance of 0 and 1 later on. You will possibly need to use both, but for now, brute force 0. Apply. Okay. Alright. Go ahead and run it. Shortcut, I mean. And this process is now automatic. You can see it's now searching for culling codes for you. Alright. So, go to your Documents folder. Search Dolphin. Okay. Go to Screenshots. Alright, now go to that file name that you took a note of earlier on. There it is. And you can see screenshots being generated. Okay. Now we're going to have to sort them by size. Okay, so go sort, size, make sure it's descending. There we go. So all that means is when it finds our screenshot with extra information in it, that will appear at the top. That's what you're going to use to create your culling code. And hopefully we'll find the grass and the gentleman that have now been missing from that scene. So okay guys, make yourselves a coffee, get comfortable, because this can take some time. Hours, sometimes days. Yeah. It's a running theme with Dolphin. It's not exactly that it's hard, but time consuming. Two codes. As you can see, there's the first one with the character model that was missing. And we also have the grass. So that's potentially two codes we've found right there. So how to create codes? Okay, if you look in your description, you're going to see a little file there called template. That's what you use to create culling codes, your culling code template. Copy that, paste it into a notepad, like so. And that's your template right there. So the Y's and the X's, we want to make disappear, okay? So, gee, well, how do we do that? Okay, let's go over to the photos that we found. Alright, right click, go to Properties. Okay. You see that number? That's your code. Copy that. See where we have all our Y's, our 0, 4, and all our Y's. Paste that over. Okay. Now look at the line directly underneath. You'll see it's almost identical except that it's got Y plus 4. What is plus 4? Well, that's a hexadecimal calculated plus 4. So okay, go and paste the same code in. Just remember that the last Y, or the last digit here, has to be replaced with the hexadecimal 4th digit up. So how do we find that? Well, we can go online and use a hex calculator. That's the easiest way. So take the last two digits, which was D0 from your top line. Okay, make sure it's plus. Very important. Okay, and now put 4. Calculate. So I'll give you a value in hexadecimal of D4. So whatever that last digit is on the first line, you want plus hexadecimal 4 on the bottom line. Alright, but that still leaves an X here on your second line. So how do we find that? Alright. look at the last digit there on all the photos. It says 0. That is because you used brute force 0. As you can see right there, brute force 0. Alright. So, therefore, in this case, that's a 0. And you guys, that's your code. That is a culling code right there. Now let's say you ran your brute forcer and it didn't work, you didn't find any culling codes. You're like, oh gee, that was a waste of a day. Maybe not. So, navigate back to screenshots. Alright, so you delete the position text there. Go into your Dolphin shortcut. Properties. Change the 0 to a 1. And you can run it again. Okay, it's binary code, 0s and 1s. So you run it again, and you might see that last digit will be a 1 instead of a 0 now. So if you go back to your code, that X will become a 1 as opposed to a 0. And that's the only difference. Okay, I hope that makes sense. If not, just ask me in the comments and I'll try and make it clearer. But that is how you make a culling code, you guys. That is it in a nutshell. Again, nothing too difficult with Dolphin VR, just very time consuming. So okay, what do we do with our code when we find it? Okay, go to the game, right click, properties. Alright, go to A or codes. Add, put in your code. Give it a name. In this case, culling, I guess. And that's it. That is a culling code right there. Now this game already has culling codes in existence, so that's why I haven't saved it, but that is how you would find a culling code. And simply check it to enable it before you start your game. Alright, that's how we do it, you guys. Thanks for joining us. We hope you find this guide helpful. If you've got any further questions or if there's anything you're unclear of, just ask us. We'll be happy to help. Alright.